welcome back to my channel. I decided to make another video. I'm so excited because I finally finished reading Words of Radiance. It didn't take me as long as it took me to read The Way of Kings, which took 2 years, as you might know. This only took me a few months, and I'm finally on board with this series, I think. In the last video where I actually talked about The Way of Kings, I posed the question, is this book worth the hype? And the ultimate answer was, yes it is. The Way of Kings was fantastic. It had an incredible climax that I still think about like on a daily basis. It lives rent-free in this head. So now that I've finished reading Words of Radiance, the big question for me is, which one did I like better? This is going to be a full spoiler video, so if you haven't read Words of Radiance or The Way of Kings, I definitely recommend not watching this video unless, you know, you just don't care. That's not my business. You do what you want. One more thing before I jump into my review. I have only read the first 2 books, if that wasn't obvious, and I'm gonna be posing questions in this video to myself. If you've read the whole series, I don't need the answer to the questions I'm asking. Please don't spoil things for me in the comments. I'm gonna be reading all 4 books before the 5th one comes out, so yeah, don't spoil stuff for me or for viewers that haven't read the rest of the series. Thanks. Off the bat, let's talk about my star rating. I gave this book 5 stars, and normally when I give a book 5 stars, I'm like, oh my god, yay, a 5-star book. But with Words of Radiance and The Way of Kings and like a couple other books I've talked about recently, it's like a soft 5 stars? No, that's not the right description. It's like an obvious 5 stars, so it's kind of less exciting to me. I definitely prefer a surprise 5 stars over a book that I go into knowing it's gonna be incredible. But that's just me, and I know that's a weird take, but here we are. Going into Words of Radiance, I did know some plot points and some general concepts about the book, just from existing on the internet. Like, it's hard to escape spoilers. So I did know going in that this was Shallan's book, where Way of Kings is very focused on Kaladin and Dalinar. This, we get Shallan. And a lot of people are like, Shallan only gets good in Words of Radiance, but I disagree. I loved her from book 1. I don't really know why exactly, but I just was very drawn to her. I've had a few people tell me that I'm very much like Shallan, and I take that as a compliment. I don't know. My other favorite character from book 1 is Adolin. So obviously if you've read Words of Radiance, you know that they are a couple in this book, and that made me very happy. I normally don't really care about romance in my fantasy books, but this was just very sweet. It was like a really unproblematic romance, so I was here for it. I did not love the kind of pining that Kaladin and Shallan start to have for each other towards the end of the book. I don't think it's going anywhere, mostly because of things I've seen on the internet, like fan art of Shallan and Adolin. I don't know, maybe we'll chalk that up to the fact that Kaladin was missing Syl during that period, and he just like needed some feminine energy, so he went after Shallan. He didn't even go after her. He just was like, wow, she's so pretty. And Shallan was like, oh, Adolin's so hot, but like, Kaladin's so smart. Stop it. I really don't like love triangles, and I don't anticipate that this is gonna be a love triangle between the 3 of them, but please, for the love of God, Brandon Sanderson, if you write a freaking love triangle between these 3, I am gonna like take an entire star off of Oathbringer just out of spite. I haven't read it yet, but it's gonna be 4 stars if there's a love triangle. It's hard to pinpoint other specific things in Words of Radiance that I loved, because I just really loved the experience of listening to the book. I did do the audiobook, although I did bring over the hardcover as a prop. Should I just hold this for the rest of the video? I really liked Kaladin's arc of finding his place within the Light Eyes community, and then ultimately becoming a Light Eyes but not wanting to by the end of the book. In Way of Kings, Sadeas was also one of my favorite characters, and I liked his arc a lot throughout this one, and his death at the end was awesome. I am nervous for what repercussions are gonna face Adolin, but that was so cool. Some of my favorite scenes were the arena duel fight between Adolin, Renarin, and Kaladin against the 4 other shard bearers, as well as Shallan and Kaladin's cozy time in the hole in the chasm during the high storm. Even though I don't ship them, I thought that was a very sweet scene, and I want to view it platonically, and it was nice. The climax battle I thought was fun as well, and like overall it was fantastic, but this is where we start to get into some of my cons for the book. The climax was awesome, and if we hadn't had the climax of The Way of Kings, I would say that this was like the best climax ever. But I preferred the climax of the Way of Kings. So what I'm kind of thinking right now is like the climax of the Way of Kings, the battle, and then ultimately Dalinar giving up his sword to Sadeas is one of the greatest scenes ever written, and therefore better than Words of Radiance. But I think that Words of Radiance overall is a better book. So I'm still kind of torn between like, what do I like better, the first book or the second book? But I think it has to be the second book because I just had overall a better time. Sorry to interrupt, but this video is sponsored by Scotch Porter. Scotch Porter provides clean and non-toxic grooming products to people that want to feel and live their best lives. With over 2 million happy consumers, they have decided to send me their award-winning Beard Care Essentials Kit. Now, you might have noticed that I don't actually have a beard, but I do have a very beardy husband. I have something for you. Products come in this sleek black packaging and the shipping was crazy fast. Precisely tailored to deliver grooming excellence, providing style minus empty promises. All of their products are devoid of sulfates, parabens, and silicone. And everything is vegan and cruelty-free. You look as handsome as Adolin. And I can't stress this part enough, they don't only make beard products, they make products for everyone. Thank you again, Scotch Porter, for sponsoring this video and for sending me free products to try. You guys can click on the affiliate links in my description below for 10% off of your order from Scotch Porter. Okay, back to the video. I feel that I'm alone when it comes to some of my feelings about the climax of Words of Radiance. I thought that the fight between Szeth and Kaladin was fantastic, but it did feel a bit like the entire plateau fight between the Parshendi and the Alethi and everyone was like a vehicle for the sky battle to happen between Kaladin and Szeth. I know that, you know, there was a lot of lead up to that fight and it was very important for the overarching story, but I don't know. The defeat of the Parshendi was just underwhelming to me. I have to imagine that they're not just gone, especially given all of the perspective interludes we had with Ashenai, the Parshendi Shardbearer. She was such an interesting character and her interludes are my favorite. So the fact that she had like a 5-second fight with Adolin and then he pushed her off a cliff and like, that's it. I have to imagine she's still alive and the Parshendi are going to continue being part of the story. Again, don't tell me in the comments. These are just my thoughts. And I was worried for a second that Szeth was just straight up dead because that would have been an extremely underwhelming death. If Szeth had truly been just some kind of faceless, nameless assassin in white that we don't have any backstory for, then Kaladin stabbing him through the throat and spine and killing him in book 2 is like, yeah, that's fine. Now we can have like other bad guys in the next books. But since we know so much about Szeth's backstory and have had so many perspective chapters from him, it initially felt really lame. Luckily, as I hoped, he is still alive. He's brought back at the end and there's gonna be more from him. And he's no longer the assassin in white necessarily, which is kind of fun. Yasna coming back at the end, I knew she wasn't dead. One, she's on the cover of Oathbringer, so that's like a downside of coming into the series late, is like she's straight up the cover character and she's got a shard blade on the cover of Oathbringer, so like, yeah. She's alive. There were some other kind of predictable things that happened. Unfortunately, again, going in, I was already aware that Shallan kills her father, but I did suspect that she also killed her mother. I don't know. Maybe it was the fact that I knew she killed her dad, that it was kind of obvious to me that she also was the one who killed her mom and not her dad, and like her dad wasn't the one who did it. I don't think there were necessarily clues leading to that Brandon Sanderson, like, I don't think he didn't do a good job or anything. I don't know. I just knew it was coming. Trust me. Love Shallan though. Like, get it, girl. But my biggest gripe with the entire book was Taravangian's interlude towards the end. The reveal that Taravangian was like puppeteering a lot of things at the end of Way of Kings was incredible. So when I saw that there was a Taravangian interlude coming up towards the end of Words of Radiance, I was really excited for it. And the information we were given from that interlude was important and kind of cool, I guess. Like him waking up every day with a different intelligence and not knowing what kind of intelligence that's gonna be, and like resulting in the day of brilliance that he had to create the diagram. That's all very interesting. But again, that interlude did feel like a very, very long vehicle to introduce the diagram. That interlude is an hour long, whereas the rest of the interludes throughout the book are like 20 minutes in the audiobook. I don't know, like I don't have a solution for this. Everything that was in that interlude was important and needed. I just felt that it dragged so much, and I was really not interested in it, unfortunately, especially given its placement towards the end of the book when things were starting to pick up pace. Speaking of picking up pace, I want to talk about the Sanderlanche. If you're not familiar, the phenomenon of the Sanderlanche is that in all of Brandon Sanderson's books, he likes to really slow pace the front 3/4 of his book and then just hit you with 25 billion reveals right at the end, and it is an avalanche of information and action, and it's awesome. And I agree, it's awesome. It makes for a really great reading experience. I just want to take a more like critical look at it though as well, because I've seen a few people be like, how does he do this? How does he write so well? Like how does he always know how to make the Sanderlanche happen? Wow, I can't talk. And I kind of just want to point out something kind of obvious, is that it's just a structural change in his writing style. He has these long drawn out chapters where he's just feeding you little tiny bits of information and a lot of world building for the first 3/4 of the book. And then the last several chapters, we are getting a new point of view every paragraph. The Sanderlanche is awesome and it's cool, but it's not magic. It's just a pacing change in the book. It works really well and he has perfected it. The way he writes it with the quick changes in between perspective characters, as well as like just blatantly stating the answers to questions you've been asking, it gives you the feeling that things are avalanching. And this is not a critique, it's just a deconstruction of what the Sanderlanche actually is. And yeah, it's awesome. And I wonder if other authors would be able to pull it off the way he does, because it's kind of like patented now. That's how he writes. The last thing that I want to touch on about this book is the thing that I really don't want comments about. Like, I don't want answers to the questions I'm about to ask. A ton of speculation for Stormlight 5 is that Moash will get a redemption arc. Now, before Words of Radiance, didn't know why Moash even needed a redemption arc, but obviously we start to get the hints of that now. He did essentially betray Kaladin at the end. For personal reasons, he wants to have the king, Elhokar, assassinated. Kaladin does agree with him at some point, but then for Kaladin's honor and his story arc with Syl and becoming a Radiant, he has to change his mind and protect the king. And I thought that was all fantastic. But here's the thing, if this is the only betrayal, negative action that Moash has taken, my opinion is, yes, of course he can have a redemption arc. It wasn't that bad. Kaladin agreed with him for like most of the book. So I have to assume that Moash is gonna do something much worse. Because if he doesn't, and if this is it, then I don't know why people are like so mad at Moash. I guess I'll find out. It would be weird if this was the only bad thing Moash has ever done, and then we're talking about in book 5, is he gonna get a redemption arc? I have to assume he's gotta kill someone. I don't know, he's a shard bearer, we'll see. But yeah, I think that's everything that I want to talk about for Words of Radiance. I really liked it. I'm really excited to get into Oathbringer, but knowing me, it's gonna take a little while. I have to finish the 4 books before December 7th, which is when book 5 comes out, but I need to take breaks between these big books. Like, look how thick she is. I need a second, okay? I need to go read Empire of the Damned. Is Words of Radiance as good as everyone says? Yeah, I'd say so. I'm not in the camp of like, it's the greatest book ever written. And personally, I think I was actually more impressed with The Way of Kings, only because it was my first taste of Brandon Sanderson. So I was really impressed by it, and now I'm like used to Brandon Sanderson. So this was just pretty good. No, that's not what I mean. I just mean it was what I expected. And that's a good thing. So overall, 5 stars for Words of Radiance. Well done, Brandon Sanderson. I know you need my approval. I'm excited to get into Oathbringer. A lot of people say Rhythm of War is their least favorite, so that kind of sucks knowing that's what I'm getting to, but I don't know. I'm excited to see what happens. Before I go, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell icon so you know when I upload new videos. I upload 2 days a week. I love you guys. Goodbye.